to our amazing team who put together the graphics, the content, and all the technical geniuses that make it happen. So a little bit about our webinars, the new normal. I think we've all worked out that in this last while, the world has changed. There's a whole new world order, but there's also a new work order. And that is what we are focusing on. And we're trying to understand for a lot longer than 2 years. And our webinars are based on 3 areas of business. So it's building leadership confidence, and how do you go about building leadership confidence? It's communicating with confidence. How do people communicate with confidence? What are some of the techniques and tactics they need? And then enabling confidence, which is how you feel internally, and how that manifests itself and displays externally, and thereby how people experience your brand. So there's 15 sessions, there's 15 plus resources, they're all on demand and free. If you head on over to our website, you'll find the on demand banner there. You can go and load down any of the previous ones as well as the new ones. So in essence, what we're saying is that we have all lived in a comfort zone for a long time. We're quite mechanistic in our approach in business, and the reason is because it's measurable and we've always lived there and we're happy there. The world is being shaken upside down, and now we really need to focus on the humanistic way of working, mainly because we don't know what our employees are doing at home, whether they are working. There's a lack of trust, and I think there are different ways in which we need to measure it, and we really need to look at the whole concept of human capital, which is a very mechanistic one, and rather look at it as our potential and see how we can change our practices and methodologies to make the work order that we're experiencing today a better place for everybody. So with me today, I have Renee Ruiz. Hi, Renee, if you want to maybe just introduce yourself.
Hi there.
Hi, Renee is ex-director at experienced and still ignorant of the ways of the world. He detested his job. The more too because the town where he was situated ceased under British rule. One day the young officer, who was Orwell, received a call. A few miles away, an elephant that was normally tame had briefly gone wild, as elephants apparently are disposed to do, ravaging the bazaar and killing one man. The expectation was that Orwell would come immediately, take charge, and somehow repair the situation. As soon as Orwell appeared on the scene, a mass of Burmans gathered, roused by the prospect that he, now toting a rifle under his arm, would provide entertainment by killing the elephant. But Orwell was not inclined to shoot. Moreover, by the time he, along with the equally growing crowd, had located the elephant, it had returned to its normal placid self, tearing up bunches of grass, beating them against his knee to clean them, and stuffing them into its mouth. Orwell writes that as soon as he saw the elephant, he knew with perfect certainty that he ought not to kill it. Not only was it a serious matter to kill a working elephant, but Orwell makes clear that he did not have the stomach to shoot an animal now appearing no more dangerous than a cow. His plan was to make certain that the elephant was once again calm and then go home. But the crowd right behind him and in hot pursuit had grown. Now it was some 2,000 strong, all happy and excited over this bit of fun. They were convinced that the elephant should and would be shot, and that it was Orwell who should and would be the shooter. In this instant, it seemed to Orwell the situation had changed. Now there was no choice. He had to kill the elephant. Although the one in the position of authority, the one in position of the large rifle, Orwell felt powerless, completely unable to stop 2,000 wolves pressing him forward irresistibly. As the story comes to its conclusion, the stark differences between Orwell and the Burman are heightened still further. In the end, Orwell feels it would be murder to shoot the elephant. But at the same time, he senses that if he fails to do what is expected of him, or even if he bungles the job, 2,000 Burmese would soon pursue him and trample him and reduce him to a grinning corpse. So he pulls the trigger and shoots the beast, describing with enormous sensitivity and in great detail the slow, dreadful death. It would take several more shots to finally finish the elephant off. But even before the tortured gasps that continued steadily as a ticking clock had ceased, Orwell, who could not stand it any longer, left the scene. On one level, Orwell's narrative is political, about one nation subjugating another, an act of imperialism that he had come to believe was abhorrent. But on another level is a gripping parable about ordinary people trapped in a complex relationship between those who ostensibly have power, authority, and influence, and those who do not. Shooting an elephant, an apparently simple story of a man in over his head, is in the end a cautionary tale in which complex, if conventional wisdoms are upended. The man in the position of authority and who had firepower to boot was unable to do what he wanted to. Conversely, those who lacked authority as well as power of any kind had their way. They wanted Orwell to shoot the elephant, and they had got him to shoot the elephant. It's a bit of a sad story. I'll leave this book here in case anybody wants to write down the cover. But yet a very true story. So what is the moral of that story? It's to fixate on leaders and on the at the expense of the followers. It's misguided, if not mistaken. And I think that was a very powerful analogy there and a really good story. Good read. Make sure you get the book. So our presentations are usually, our webinars are usually taking the content or the concept, the topic, which in this case is followership, giving you some context and then giving you 4 things that you can work with to change your own situation or to help a situation that you're in, or to help your business in a way in which it's worthwhile. So let's So it's become apparent around the world, and we're seeing it everywhere at the moment in the world at large, that followers are creating change and changing leaders, and that the followers are also gaining power and influence while leaders are losing power and influence. And I think that's quite an important statement. Perhaps, Renee, you can add something to that.
Yes, I think that if we all apply our minds a bit about the circumstances and what's happening in the world right at the moment, we see that the value system of the world around us has been changing, and I think it's accelerated over this last period. And people are starting to find their voices. Just for instance, look at the Black Lives Matter movement and the momentum behind that. People, the followers, are finding their voices and are putting pressure on leadership to start listening and to not try and hold on to the power, all the power themselves, but to realize that power should be shared. That's the message there.
All right, so I think Renee's made a good point, and you know, one has to ask, why is this the case? And I love this picture because the why is around the Y generation. I think the Y generation factor has had a phenomenal shift in where we are today and what is happening today. So let's give you some background to the Y generation and have some fun. They were born in sort of like from the 1980s to the 2000s. They're also known as the millennials. So they're those that follow Gen X and they precede Gen Z. They don't really value traditional leaders as much as what the fathers and mothers, the baby boomers, yes, myself, do. They are more inclined to think for themselves. And why is that? Well, because there's an ease of access to information, you know, so leaders can no longer lead them around by the nose. They are not the only people who have access to information. Most people do nowadays. And so they're skeptical. When they hear something, I'm sure you've all heard the trend, Google it, and we'll see if it makes sense. So they go and Google things. So what's happened is that industrial age has given way to the information age. The industrial age was all about command and control. And the information age is all about relationships and how you manage those relationships, because everybody's got the same amount of power now from an information point of view. So that has empowered followers because they are not going to be given false information. And there's a whole lot of stuff around fact checking at the moment that's going on in the States. And it is frustrating the older leaders in the States because they cannot get past that. And they're also believers in expanding the social network. So thanks to Saffron Bagley, who was one of the speakers at our Human Capital Activation Summit a while ago. She had put together a nice description of the Y generation, and I'm going to play you that now, and you can see if you agree with this concept. So that gives you an indication of who the Y generation is. And it's interesting. If you think about a generation who never had a world before AIDS, there's a couple of things there. Who never had a world before those films. I can remember developing those and then rushing to go and see what the photographs look like. Now the world sees them at the same time they do. So let's just have a look at some of the traits of the Generation Y, because they have been things that have influenced them and what they have influenced. So they're also called the eco boomers, and they're very confident in the solutions and that they can offer to the world. They sometimes appear arrogant, and we'll show you a little video clip now why we say they appear arrogant, because they're going to make a plan. The plan is not always the right thing to do, but they're going to make a plan. So let's just talk a bit more about them. The things that have influenced them is the internet. They have always had access to information from when they were 2 bricks high. Not that they could always use it. They've always had a mobile phone in their hand. It's just gotten better and better. Digital age is part of what they are. You know, if you had to think of them without a digital age, or without something like a microwave oven or a control on a washing machine that is turned by a dial, it's completely foreign to them. They do believe that the world is a village. They don't see it the way that everybody else does with these rigid borders. They get really frustrated when they have to apply for visas, as do most of us. And they're also part of the 9/11 generation. So they've lived through some really horrendous things. So I'm battling today. And then what has defined the values, and what are some of the things that they are recognized for? They have a veneer of confidence, and understand that it's a veneer, and they're very good at projecting that. Deep down, I'm not always so sure that they are so confident. They're techno-literate. So if you ever want to know how to do something, ask your kid that's about 15, 14, you know, they'll tell you how. They're desperate to belong. They're globally aware. They know what's going on in the world. Don't for 1 minute think they don't know. But they want to know why. What's causing it? Why is it happening? So that is the generation that has really sparked where we are today. And I think COVID is going to have a similar effect. I think what has happened here today, people have like a packet of marbles fallen onto the floor. They've all rolled off in their own direction because they've had to, because they've lost jobs, they've lost livelihoods, and they've got to go and find their way. And that's going to have a profound effect on us. Just as some of the things that have happened in this generation's time has had an effect on them. I just want to have some fun with you and play you an interesting video which shows you some of the antics that they can get up to every now and then.
Linda, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Before you play the video, why don't you just check your sound is on? There wasn't music with the previous one.
Okay, hold on. Let me just
the top
see.
is that little button.
Yeah, I just want to check. Just give me a second, folks. Sorry. You can see I'm not one of the Gen Y's. I'm battling to get to the screen which shows me the button that I'm looking for. Deep down, I'm not always so sure that they are so confident. They're techno-literate. So if you ever want to know how to do something, ask your kid that's about 15, 14, you know, they'll tell you how. They're desperate to belong. They're globally aware. Hold on, I'm not coming right. You're going to have to help me.
It's the sound of. Okay, hold on.
Sorry, guys, just hang on for 2 seconds. They've got to go and find a way. That's going to have a profound effect on it. Just as some of the things that have happened in this generation's time have had an effect on it. I just want to have some fun with you and play you an interesting video which shows you some of the antics that they can do actually every now and then.
Linda, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Before you play the video, why don't you just check your sound is on? There wasn't music with the.
Okay, hold on. Let me Great. Thanks, everybody. Sorry about the delay there.
Mr. Goodman.
This is a job interview. It's very fun.
What makes you think you're qualified for this job?
Oh! Stop punching me!
Punch it.
Please, don't throw me!
No, not that way.
Don't touch me! Don't throw me out!
Thanks.
Serious, huh? Get it?
Like I said, the generation who make a plan irrespective. So that was just a bit of fun. You know, each generation has got something different, and that was their fun part. Just let me get us to the next slide. Okay, so I think the next thing is, why don't we focus on followers? And I think that's interesting. You know, why don't we focus on followers? What is the idea behind not focusing on a follower? And it comes down to, there's a stigma associated with being a follower. What is that stigma? So a while ago, a well-known car advertiser started a campaign, and it was about always lead, never follow. It's amazing how that stuck. And it gave this misconception that leaders are more important than followers, which is not the case. And the result of that is that you've got, if you go and look at Amazon.com's website, they've got about, and probably more now, 95,000 odd books devoted to leadership, with only about 800 of those devoted to followership. So the ratio is 120 to 1. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. And followership is systematically being devalued. Everybody wants followers. If you go onto Facebook, if you go onto YouTube, if you go onto anything, everybody wants to have followers. So gathering followers is really being important. And although it seems to have taken off in the social media sphere, I think to a large extent, individuals and businesses do not see that as a leader in a business, I need followers or I'm going nowhere. So research done by Williams and Miller revealed that 1,600 executives, which is 1/3, are followers, yet would not concede that they followed, which I think is rather interesting. So here's a couple of more facts. Much attention is paid to what makes a leader successful, because the thinking is that as a leader, if you have successful leaders in an organization, the organization will be successful. And that is not the truth. You know, it means that leaders need to obtain followers and not try and force them or apply dictatorship or authoritarians. They need followerships that are there from by themselves through their own will that they want to be there. And I think if that doesn't happen, the leader is not going to go anywhere, and the organization therefore won't be successful. So that should give you a bit of context into the situation. And now let's go through the four key areas where you can have a look at making changes. So the first thing that we want to think about is the old way of thinking is that leaders are king. No, that's not the case anymore. Without followers, there are no leaders. Stands to reason, but surprisingly, organizations and leaders don't actually always see that. So how to and what motivates followers? So what do you do to motivate them, and how do you do it? That's point number one. Then there are models of followership. So followers can be grouped into areas where they have certain characteristics, and how can you use that to your advantage? Then you also have 10 rules of a good follower. What does a good follower need to do? You know, there's like at least 1,000 plenty rules how to be a good leader. Who talks about being a good follower? And then lastly, what does this mean in business? Why even is it relevant? And then, of course, if you get it right, great followers, great leaders, a confident brand. So the first thing we would like you to do is to just take our quick poll. So if you can get your QR code reader ready, or you can get onto that link. The key thing here is what we're wanting to understand is in your organization, is there tacit recognition and respect from the impact of followers? Yes or no? Do they understand the impact of followers? And in your organization, do your followers have a say in important decisions? Yes, sometimes, or no? And then the third one is, where does the power of your leaders come from? Authority or influence? Do they use authority and exercise it, or do they go all out to influence? So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to dash off to get a glass of water because for some reason I seem to be choking today. While you answer that, and I'll be back in 2 seconds. Right, I'm back, and I hope you've managed to do the quick poll. Thanks, everybody. Working from home and doing these webinars is quite interesting in that we have a plumber here today, and our dogs don't like foreigners. So we should, it's quite interesting though, so excuse all the dog barks, but I mean, we're fine. Okay, right, let's carry on. So how to and what motivates followers? There are 3 key conditions to motivate a follower. And I'll take you through those now. But the main things are environmental and internal factors drive motivation. So to increase follower motivation, by doing so, you create a results-oriented environment with a genuine concern for followers and provide feedback. So let's go through these 3 things. They want the confidence that they can perform the job expected of them. They want to know that the job that is expected from them, they can do it, they are capable to do it, and that they are empowered to do it. And I think that's key. They must be empowered to do it. So if somebody's micromanaging them, looking over their shoulders the whole time, telling them, no, that's not the way they would do it, having some suitcase syndrome, it actually detracts from their ability to do what you would like them to do. So interesting research by Earhart and Klein to examine how follower-leader relationship, it determines the influence of values and personality. And it indicates that followers had different responses to the same leader behaviors, and followers looked for leaders whose values matched their own. So I think that idea of when, we talk about, we don't necessarily have to be friends with people. I think there's a difference between friends, friendly, and familiarity, and somewhere you need to find a happy balance to get followers to follow you. Second item is they want to trust their leader to tie the outcome to performance. So if I haven't done it in the way in which you want me to do it, as long as you've received the outcome you want, I've performed. And I think that is another thing which a lot of traditional leaders battle with. So that's another key point. And then they want to feel that they've achieved something. So they want a sense of achievement. They want to be acknowledged. And I think there's a difference between just acknowledgement like a pat on the back and public acknowledgement. Public acknowledgement means a lot, whether it's your child, it's your employee, it's your boss, it doesn't matter who it is. People need to be acknowledged for their achievement. And that achievement is producing an outcome that you were looking for. So that gives you 3 key conditions that motivate followers. And I think it's important that you just bear those in mind. Right. So that's your first item. So how to and what motivates them. The second thing is there are models of followership, and we're going to go through somebody called Kelly's model of followership, and I think it's quite an interesting one. But before I get there, there are 4 different types of followers. There are alienated followers, there are conformist followers, passive followers, and exemplary followers. So what does that mean? Okay, an alienated follower is they're mavericks with healthy skepticism of the organization. They're capable but cynical. So I would usually label them as dangerous enthusiasts. Okay. They are also, because they're quite cynical, so they always look at everything from with the wrong mindset. Then there are conformist followers, They're very active at doing the organization's work and will actively follow orders. And then there are passive followers. They rely on leaders to do the thinking for them. They also require constant direction. So they what most leaders talk about as being high maintenance. And then there's exemplary followers. They're independent, they're innovative. They will ask the leaders questions. They will try and understand how to improve themselves. They're critical to organization success. They have a high work rate. They work well with their cohorts and they present themselves consistently. Doesn't matter who they come in contact with. So when you have a look at these followers, I don't think you can say this one's better than that one. They're all required in a business. You can't have everybody working at high work rates, and because some people just aren't like that. Their job is not the most important thing in their life, and that's something we're seeing in today's world with COVID and how people are managing to balance their life work, their work home life better. So I think when you look at these, you can't say that the one is better than the other one, or you only want the other one. You need all of them in an organization. It's how do you put them into the areas where they are best suited in the organization. So let's go into this one. This is the model where you've got independent and critical thinkers, and then you've got dependent and uncritical thinking, they're more doers. Then you've got passive and active, and right in the middle is the pragmatist. So this is how those people fit into that scale. The alienated ones are passive and they're independent. The exemplary ones are active and they're independent, and then the passive ones that sit in the bottom, they're dependent and passive, obviously, and uncritical thinkers, and the active ones are the conformists. So these people are all required, as I've meant, and the trick, as I've said, and the trick is now to match them to certain leaders, and we're going to do that. But we have some good examples of alienated followers and passive followers, and Renee is going to share those with us.
Linda, from all my years in the corporate world, I can give a number of examples. The companies I worked for, and the positions I were in myself, as well as some other well-known examples of companies. If you, for instance, take the whole concept of alienated followers, some of you who was with us a couple of weeks ago, where we spoke about the example of Nokia and what happened with the demise of that organization. We had a whole lot of alienated followers in that case, where they were independent and critical thinkers. These people were the guys in middle management and the technically skilled guys, but they were sidelined by the leadership who did not want truth and did not want to accept the possibility that their iOS and their approach to the cell phone market was outdated. So by the time Nokia's decline happened very, very quickly. So that's what
Okay, Linda, we seem to have lost Renee. So maybe
spoke about.
if you can perhaps take over and continue, would that be okay?
Sure. Okay, that's fine. That's perfect. So thanks, Renee. Sorry we lost you there for a second. So if you take this model, which is Kelly's model of followership, and you'll all recognize those people, you'll be able to pinpoint them where they sit in your organization, the roles they fulfill in the organization, and sometimes they might not be that type of person, but it's learned behavior to fit into that role. There is then also Hershey and Blanchard's situational leadership theory, and this speaks to a set of 4 different people. They are telling, selling, participating, and delegating a type of style of leaders. And the telling style, they sort of like they lack training, they're confident or desire to complete tasks, they direct followers down the right path, and provide feedback. So that's how you use them, in what situations you use the telling style of leader. The selling style of leader you use with followers who are confident and willing, but not able to complete the task. You guide them by clarifying decision and providing the opportunity to question. Then you get the participating leader, and you use them to boost motivation of the followers, and that are able, but they lack the confidence. The relationship-orientated leadership is also dominant, and you encourage and support. And then you get the delegating leader, or the style or situational style. They're used when followers are able, confident, and motivated, and they turn over the responsibility with ease. So these, if you match the situational leadership type of person to the followership model, just let me silence this for 1 second. Then you get, so if you overlay these two models, so I'm going to just show you the integrated model. The integrated model looks like this. So if you have a alienated follower in your business, you should look at finding a participating leader to link them up to, because you'll see that their relationship behavior is high. If you get somebody who has not got a relationship behavior, but has got more of a telling relationship, you're going to have a mismatch in leader and followership, and that might not prove to be as useful as what one would like. Then if you match selling and passive together, you also get a good outcome. And if you match delegating and exemplary together, you get a good outcome, and telling and conformist. And we're going to show you a table now. And for those who are concerned that you might not be able to remember all of these, this is in the handout on the on-demand library, where you can go and get it. It is a download for you, so that you can print these out, or you can keep them on your system somewhere. But you'll understand here what we're saying. The leadership quadrant, which is, and this is when they are managing in situations, it's either participating, selling, telling, or delegating. And then try and match them to the quadrants of participating and alienated, selling and passive, telling and conformist, delegating and exemplary. And why do you want to do that? The inclusion, the behaviors that you want, the inclusion of followers in decision-making to cause alienated followers to take ownership is quite important. And the behaviors of the followership is becoming more involved through participation, changing insider versus outsider mindset. So you'll see there's a nice complementary model there, where the two will work together well, and they will both grow through that process. Selling and passive, so the behaviors demonstrated by a selling leadership style is explaining decisions and clarifying the expectations to engage the passive followers, and the passive follower does as is requested. They're not going to always question it and make the selling leader's life a misery. Then the telling leader details expectations and monitors performance to direct conformist followers, and the conformist shows that results are important and demonstrates them through the outcomes they produce. Then the delegating leader turns over decision-making responsibilities to the implementer, and the exemplary follower demonstrates results with increased responsibility. So having and understanding the types of followership of the followers you have in your business, how you can categorize them, the types of leaders you have in your business, and how you categorize them, and making sure you have a good match whereby they can trust each other and build a good relationship and build a good team, what would be the right word? Good team working style. It makes for a much better productive environment in your business, and that's really what you're wanting to achieve. So that is an integrated model. It's Kelly's and Hershey's model of followers and leaders, and in situational leadership. Gosh, what a day. Right, the next thing is, so we've now given you an idea on how you can motivate followers and what motivates them and why they are motivated by those things. And then let's move on to, we've done the models. So what are the different models of leaders and followers, and how do you complement them? Then we've got 10 rules of good followership. So like we said earlier on, there's like at least 120 rules for good leaders, but what are the 10 good rules of followership? So let's just go through those. So the first one is, don't blame your leader for an unpopular decision or policy. Your job is to support, not undermine. And that's what good followers do. And you managed to do that in countries. So when Cyril said to us, we all need to do something, we reacted. Yes, after a while, we started getting all upset and the politics came into it. But we demonstrated good followership behavior. The next one is, don't have conflict with your leader in public, and if it's necessary, do it in private. Avoid embarrassing situations and never reveal to others what was discussed. So you won't be a great follower if you just blindly follow. You need to have a backbone and you need to have an opinion. And so if a decision is handed down, you need to be able to question it. But I don't think you should question it in a public environment because it actually compromises the leader. You need to get into a situation where you can speak to them about it and question it and avoid an embarrassing situation. The next one is make a decision, run it past your leader and use your initiative. So if you are empowered as a follower, and you will always be, or you should always have certain decisions that you can make, there's nothing wrong with going and saying to them, this is the decision I've made. You know, do you agree, or do you want to, do you want to add something to that? And then get on with it. It's not asking permission. There's no shame in doing that. So I don't know if Renee's come back or if she's still offline, or I'm not sure.
No, we seem to have lost her, Linda, so she
Renee
won't
wants to just
participate
comment
further.
on something. Just let me get my sound back here. Sorry, Charles.
I said she's not with us any longer. She seems to have lost her connection, so she won't be participating any further.
All right, perfect. So she just had some words of wisdom that she wanted to share with us around 2 of the points in her experience. The next one is accept the responsibility whenever it is afforded. So if you're a follower and somebody says, won't you take the lead on this? Don't pull back or shy away or say it's not my job. Take it and see what you can achieve with it. It might actually open another opportunity for you. Tell the truth and don't quibble. Your leader will be giving advice up the chain of command based on what you said. So if you have said something, don't try and backpedal on it. Make sure your leader understands it, because they're going to have to report on whatever you said and that you don't want to compromise them again. So good followership has an element of not compromising your leader. The next thing is do your homework. And that's important. Give your leader all the information needed to make a decision and anticipate possible questions. So if a decision has been handed down and it's not necessarily a great one, or if you've heard of something in the grapevine, understand it, do your homework as to how it arose, share it with your leader, give them all the information, make the decision together, and anticipate any frequently asked questions. When making recommendations, just remember who will probably have to implement it. This means you must know your own limitations. That's important, and weaknesses as well as your strengths. So if you've made a recommendation, don't say to somebody, I don't think this is a great way of doing it. I think this might be a better thing that we can do, and I can help you with that by doing the following. So that's just the kind of lexicon that you need for doing that. Then number 8, keep your leader informed on what's going on in the business. They do have a right to know, especially if it is a small business. Just as you would like your leader to share with you what is happening in the business and what is happening to you in your own personal life and how that may affect them in the business, you also need to make sure that they know what's happening in the business. What is the talk in the business? Share it with them. If you see a problem, try your level best to fix it. Don't worry about blame and who gets the praise. Just make sure that it's fixed, because it's best for the entire business, which includes you. And then put in more than an honest day's work, add value, and demonstrate how you make a difference. And I think that's really important. A lot of people feel that they don't have to add value, but you do. Everybody is there for a reason. You all need to have a purpose, and you need to be able to add value. So that's vitally important. And I think in a lot of instances, people think that adding value, when they talk about value, they think about monetary value. That is not the case. Adding value is changing a procedure, changing a practice, making it easier for somebody to do a job, giving some advice where it's necessary. It is not adding value only from a monetary point of view. So those are the 10 rules of...
Hi there, Linda. Can you hear me? I think I'm back.
The Renee, are you back with us?
Yes, if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Right. Renee, you wanted to say something about the followership?
Yes, let me just check. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Charles, am I live? Can people hear me?
Yes, you're live. Thanks for that.
So, Linda, I thought I could just add to those 10 points that you made about the rules for good followership.
Mm-hmm.
On that point 3 that you made about going to the boss with solutions rather than just problems. It's happened so often in my career that I have seen where a staff member would come into your office and dump the problem on your table and walk out and take no accountability. We had a situation, for instance, where at some point we ran into some cash flow problems in one of our organizations. And the financial director went to the CEO and said, we've got this cash flow problem. Instead of going and saying, we've got this problem, I'm going to do this, I'm going to move that out, I'm going to approach it this way, you know, that kind of thing. So good followers don't dump problems on the desk of the boss. They come with solutions, and the boss will then give guidance in that situation. But the important thing is don't park your brain at the door when you go to work. As a good follower, you have to give input. On that point 5, where you spoke about tell the truth, I'm not sure if everybody is aware that during the American war on Saddam Hussein in Iraq, he had such a firm and fearful grip over the people, over his generals and the army, that they did not want to tell him what was really going on. And even at the time when the city started falling and Saddam Hussein's two sons, who were also in the army, had already been killed, he still thought that they were winning because the generals were not prepared to tell the truth. So we owe the truth to the bosses. A good follower shares information and doesn't just mindlessly follow. I think that those are maybe some powerful examples of what Linda means when she speaks about what is a good follower. Linda?
Sure. And you wanted to say something about the point 10 as well, or not?
Yes, I think that on that point, I think what I want to say is that in many cases, an employee behaves as if their salary is an appearance fee. Your salary isn't an appearance fee. Your salary is there to reward you for the input that you are making, for the ownership that you take to make a difference in the organization. You are not a passive passenger on a train. You as a follower, you have to make as much of a difference to what happens in the organization as what the leadership does.
Yeah, very good point. And that's very true, Renee. That's what I said earlier on. You know, followers are such instrumental in value-adding components of any business if they are good followers. And, you know, whether you like it or not, everybody's a follower. So even if you are head of the retail banking in F&B, you are still a follower because you are following what your shareholders say. And if you are the shareholder and you are the owner of the business, or whichever way you'd like to put that, you are also a follower because you're following what the customer wants. So we are all followers, and how do we be good followers? How do we act as good followers? So I think it's really important, and it's just a slightly different take on looking at a business as opposed to always just paying attention to the leader. think it's time that we start implementing programs and plans on how we improve the followers in our business, because if we can get that right, our business will also be a lot better. So let's have a look then. What does that mean to business if we get it right? What is the relevance in business? So, you know, I think people will say to you, oh yes, but if the followers are adding a lot of value, then that's the tail wagging the dog. No, not really. The tail can wag the dog, but the dog can wag the tail as well. And the situation determines which does the wagging. It's never a case of there's only one that is right. You're both right. And I think that, you know, in a communication environment, and why am I saying this? Because I know a lot of our audience are communicators. They need to get into C-suites by being exemplary followers and participating leaders. And I think communicators have such a lot of value to add, but their role is undervalued. And part of it is because they're neither good followers or good leaders. They feel that they are the poorer child or the poorer cousin to marketing. So I've put that in because I know that that is a bugbear for communicators, and we've got a huge audience of communicators. So what are the 10 good rules of followers? And we've gone through those, and we will just make sure that we give you that handout. And I think Renee wants to comment here as well.
Yeah, the comment that I wanted to make there when you spoke about communicators need to enter the C-suite, the important thing to remember is that communication is not only the talking side, it's also the listening side. One of my first bosses used to say, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, use it in that proportion. And I think it's an important lesson for leaders if they want to breed good followers, is to actually listen to their followers.
I think that there's an important thing to understand there. While you're talking, you're not learning. And I think that's really important, you know, because you're not taking in anything, you're putting out stuff. So it's really important for you to actually learn as well as share your knowledge. So let's just go to the next slide. And I think this for me is really, really important. And I know we mentioned it in the beginning, but I'm going to mention it again. Followers the world over are getting bolder and more strategic. They're less likely now than they were in the past to know their place. You've all heard of that. Why don't you know your place? And to do as they're told, and to keep their opinions to themselves. Their opinions are no longer just opinions. A lot of them are based on good, solid knowledge and facts because it is available to them now. And this change, this small but potential seismic shift in the balance of power between leaders and followers constitutes a caution. Leaders who ignore or dismiss their followers, you do so at your peril. It's really an important part of your business, and you need to ensure that you bring your followers into the fold and you equip them and empower them as well. So let's quickly do the next quick poll. And this quick poll is about what kind of follower are you, or do you believe you are? Are you alienated? Are you passive? Are you compliant? Or are you exemplary? Which kind of follower do you think you are? But you will at some stage also be a leader. So what type of leader, and what is your dominant leadership style? And of course, these are based on situations, but what kind of leadership style do you think you have? Are you more participative, more selling, more telling, more delegating? And should the tail sometimes wag the dog, yes or no? So if you can quickly complete that quick poll for us, we do the results just at the end after we've gone through what success looks like. And Charles will share that with us, but if you could complete that now, I'll give you a few minutes and just see where I'm at, because I have another session shortly. Right, so I'm going to move along. And really, so we go from understanding what and how and what followers are and what they want out of leaders for leaders to get the best from them. And if you get that right as a leader, if you can establish a good working relationship with your followers and match them in situations with leaders that are going to get the best from them. So that they want to wash the dishes. There's a movie which I think it's The Breakup. It's got two well-known actors in it, and she asks her boyfriend to wash the dishes. And he lies there and he says, well, I'll go and wash them. And she said, no, what I want you to do is to want to wash the dishes. And that's what you want from your followers. You want them to want to do the best thing for their business, not to be told to do the best thing for their business. And whenever I think of that statement of this lady saying, I want you to want to wash the dishes, I always think of followership. You will have smooth sailing, you'll have great followers, great leaders, and a extremely confident brand. So what would success look like if you do have a confident brand through good followership and through good alignment of followers and leaders? Well, you'll have an organization where everyone has a voice, and that is important because those voices help a lot to ensuring innovation in organizations, because the people on the coalface are usually those who will drive innovative ideas because they are doing it every day and they can see what needs to change. So everyone has a voice. There will be mutual respect. There will no longer be a mindset of, well, I'm a leader, so I'm better than you, or I'm more than you. There will be a mutual respect, which is absolutely key to running any good organization. There will be a common purpose because you'll have something in common and you'll want to strive for it. And as we always mention, purpose is king. And how do you get that common purpose? And then last but not least, of course, is you will have a confident brand. And that is what we're all striving for. And why do we want a confident brand? Because confident brand is more followers than less confident brands. And people want to cuddle up to confidence because it's an attractive quality, whether it's a brand or a person. And understand, I'm not saying arrogance, I'm saying confident. So a quick shout out for our next session, just before we go over to the results from the quick polls. The next session is the 6th of August, and it is about what customers really want. So there's quite a bit about customer experience in there, and how do you understand that, and what do you do about that. So I'm going to hand over to Charles, who will give us the results of our quick polls. Great followers, great leaders, and an extremely confident brand. Thanks, Charles.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Okay, so there's the results up on the screen at the moment. Quick poll number 1, in your organization, is there a tacit recognition for respect from the impact of followers? Predominantly, the answer there is no. The second question, in your organization, do followers have a say of important decisions? Sometimes, and yes, have an equal weighting, no, a little bit less. And then where does your power from your leaders come from? The majority, they feel that it comes from influence rather than from authority. Then going on to poll number 2, we've got what kind of follower are you? Very equal, can you believe it? 4 quadrants, exactly the same, stating that alienated, passive, compliant, and exemplary are at equal weighting in terms of the responses received. And then what is the dominant leadership style in your company? Participative, telling, and delegating are the 3 main answers. No selling is done by anyone according to the respondents, and the highest weighting is around telling. And then thirdly, should the tail sometimes wag the dog? The answer unequivocally is yes. Not one person said no. So back to you, Linda.
Thanks. Those results to me are quite interesting because that second one, which says, what is the dominant leadership style, which is selling, is telling. And then the other one, are your leaders more influencers or authoritarian? They say it's more influencers. So there's a sort of like inequality happening there, but it's very interesting results specifically around what kind of follower you are. So yeah, those results were very interesting. Thank you, Charles. I'm going to thank everybody now for attending. Thank you to Charles for all the organizing and running around and sorting out all our technical side of things. And thanks to Renee for participating and giving your sound advice. So from me for now, it's thanks everybody. Please remember, like, follow, subscribe, share. Have a nice afternoon. Cheers.
Thank you, Ray.
Majority based come from influence rather than from quality.